Hello everybody and welcome back to the Norries podcast. As always, I'm joined by my good friend
Timmy
Long, and this week we have a very special guest again, Nicole Ryan. Nicole has a great story about, I suppose it starts negative in terms of her brother died through drug use, but she's become an activist after that and used, I suppose, the energy from that negative energy to do so much positive afterwards. So I hope you enjoy it. I'm looking forward to you. I'll introduce Nicole.
Hi Nicole.
Hi guys, lovely to be here today.
Thanks for coming up to Churchfield to meet us.
No problem. It's a lovely area. I've been kind of around here before. I went to college and I went to St. Mary's there every now and then, so I'm not very familiar with the area, but I've been through it.
Yeah, they do the addiction studies course over in the orthopaedic hospital.
Yeah.
I met a few people over there. I walk my dogs over there. And me and Timmy used to do community service over there as well.
Yeah. They're a good few years ago, aren't they?
Yeah. So look, before we get into, I suppose, what you're doing now, we always like to start with who you are, where you come from, and maybe your early life. Or
I suppose, I'm Nicole Ryan, obviously. I'm from Mill Street, so it's in North Cork, small rural town. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody knows everybody's business. You can't fart sideways and they'll know. And growing up now, I was very quiet. I was very intelligent, very lazy, but I didn't, public speak. I didn't do any of that. Like, I had dreams of becoming an engineer. So I remember in secondary school, I went in my leaving cert year, I was 17 at the time, and the way you have to pick subjects you have to pick against, and they were all shite really. But I had to pick business, I had to do business, and 2 days in, I was like, nah, I want to do engineering. So I remember going up to my principal, and I was like, oh, can I just switch over to engineering? Now, I hadn't done engineering in my life. And he was like, a man couldn't do it, not mind you, and you are a woman.
oh my god!
I know. Yeah.
And from that moment on,
Yeah.
I was set in my ways. So off I went and I was touring a skiddy. I went and studied marine and plant engineering. I was the only girl there, and it was so tough from the start. Like, everything was like against me, and I didn't look like your typical female engineer, which is a bit tomboyish, I had the personality, but I didn't have the face to match. So the lads just thought I was there for a good time. Like, I wasn't. It was really difficult. I got through it, went to sea in 2015. So I was working for Irish Ferries, and this time I was thrown in with a load of men. Like, this was different. This wasn't the lads, like. So I was in there with them. They hated me. My God, did they hate me. Every day I come into the engine room, I come down, and they'll turn around to me and they'd be like, why are you here? Like, the lads, like, they'd be like, why are you here? This is not a job for women. Your job's to go home and mind children. Oh, they were as blunt as that, like, and none of them would talk to me. My trainer, because he had to speak to me to train me, he had to. The rest of the lads were just couldn't comprehend why I wanted to be in the engine room. I loved engineering. Like, I love fixing things. I love building things from an early age. So this was my ideal dream job.
How do you cope with all the sexism amongst that, not being accepted or being othered? How does it make you feel? How do you get through it?
I think it's a very toxic masculine world, the maritime industry. Like, you're taught to not show emotion. You can't be this way, that way. You get on with your job. You get paid at the end of the day. It's quite like the army or the military and navy, whatever. So I had to put on another layer of hardness on myself because I was a woman. So the last thing I wanted them to turn around and say was, sure, she's a woman. She's the emotion off her, like. I didn't want that. I had to be really careful as well, like, and you'd think that, like, there's about 20 girls in the whole college, about 360 men, like. So the ratios was off. So even, like, things like, having a boyfriend or seeing someone in there, like, you had to be really careful because, like, one slip and that's it, like. And I had to be very careful around that. So dealing with it, I suppose I just got on with it, and I'd gotten so far in my career that I was like, I'm not going to let these men stop me. And after a while, I proved to them that I could do the job just as well as they could. And they kind of took me in, and it was like, I was like, oh, I finally made it, I'm in with the lads. And that was all fun and games and great, like. And I was striving to be chief engineer. I wanted to be sitting at the top of that engine room and be telling them what to do, like, And I think, like, their personality softened around me as well, because like they were pure hard men, like, but they just kind of softened around me because I suppose I was a female, and also I wasn't emotional as they thought that I would be.
Yeah.
So it was great. Like, life was just starting out for me. And I suppose my brother on the flip side was completely different to me. He's chaotic, and in that chaotic way that's kind of good, you know. Like, he can be a mess, but he was kind of good.
Like boisterous, chaotic. Like.
Yeah, like he was like, the man is 6'7". He was huge. Like,
What?
yeah, you couldn't miss him. You couldn't miss him. And he used to walk around town as well. He went through phases of playing music. Now, he never went to anyone professional. He taught himself. He was shite at the drums, but he's really good at guitar. So he had this little ukulele, this tiny thing now, 6'7" guy walking around in town just playing this tiny guitar, which made it look even smaller in his massive hands, you know. And like, people would be just laughing at him, you know, and he was just trying to make people smile. He was never structured. He hadn't a clue what he wanted to do after he was leaving cert. Like, I'd say the majority of people don't know. Yeah. So he said, you know, I'll just take a gap year, I'll go work gig. He was working in town. And the man now, he was working, washing pots and pans, like, but Jesus, you'd swear he was the CEO of, like, Apple or something. He was so proud of it, that he was making his own money, he was making friends. He was just out here living his life, you know?
Sounds like a big friendly giant.
Yeah.
You know, someone like that.
He really
pure,
was.
Emotional and just soft.
The emotion out of him was second to none. Like, he was either crying, laughing, screaming, shouting, but he was really, really gentle as a person, you know. So, yeah.
And what was he doing in college then?
He didn't go to college, so he took the year out.
Okay.
He was planning to go back in the following year. He wanted to go to CIT. He was really good at computers. So he just said, "Here, look, I'll give him a chance at computer science or something like that." And I'd say he would have been fantastic at it. But he just took that year out, I suppose, kind of find himself. Because my brother was always that kind of free-spirited type of thing. Used to drive me insane. Like, it used to just, I was mad. Like, I was like, how do you have no plan for your life? Like, what are you doing? Like, and he was like, I don't know, like, I'll be famous one day. You'll see.
I think a gap year for somebody that's after doing the leaving cert before they go to college, I think that's a great idea. Because you would mature an awful lot in a year when you're 18 to 19. And then after the year, you've some lived experience. Then you're like, you know what? No, this is what I want to do. But to know after sixth year what you want to do for the rest of your life is a very hard thing to do.
It is. I had a gap year of 20 years. That was mine. I finished school just at 15. And there was a gap there for 20 years. So it took me 20 years to figure out what I wanted to do.
But you got there.
Literally.
But yeah, I agree with you. Like, I think that's, because like, I think a lot of people think that they know what they want to do at 18, and then I'd say the majority of people don't work in what they specialised in. Do you know what I mean? So it's bizarre to think that for young people.
Yeah. Or even what they love. Even something that they love. See, in society, we're just put into jobs or a trade or whatever. The person that's doing them might even like them, and they might be in a job miserable for 20 years without the ability to just move away from it and do something you like, you know.
And that's it's, I suppose school has a lot to do with that. You know what I mean? Like, every child is a genius, and then they go to school, and then, you know, you don't know what you like, you don't know what your passions are. You're fitting boxes the whole way through, like the leaving cert. If you don't do it, you know, your life is over. It's not, like, you know, I didn't even, like, if young people were told, look, the leaving cert, it's a bit of load of shit, really, to be honest. And there's so many other things and so many ways of getting into places, you know, because they suffer such pressure. I just think back to my leaving cert, like, it was literally do or die, like.
Yeah, I have a daughter like that at the moment. She, even she's only in second year, and she'd be up till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. Some nights they're doing her homework, and I say, like, she plays a lot of sport as well, and she mightn't get the time, but the pressure on her. But she says that she wants to do well and get educated, which is very good, because when I look at her, I get a lot of gratitude because of my own. She's able to study, just let's say that. Yeah. She's able. When I was her age, I had so much going on inside my head. Sitting down and looking at a book or reading something was just impossible, you know.
So, do you know, you were talking about there, you were after going through your struggles with the male-dominated industry, and Alex is finding his feet. He took a year out and he was doing the music. Things seem to be going really well for your family.
Yeah, it seemed that way. And I suppose we were naive as hell. as a family. You know, we thought that what a lot of families maybe would think, especially like in rural Ireland, would be, oh, like drugs are bad. You know, we know this, but it kind of happens out there. It doesn't happen here on our doorstep. Like it would never happen around here. And we never opened discussions with my brother. We thought, number one, the school would. No, it's the same as when I was in school. I was told heroin and cocaine were bad. If you do them, you'll die. Like, and I thought that literally you would die the minute you did it. And then I went to college and people were doing all sorts, and I was like, come here, they didn't die. Like, you know, what's going on here? So for us, it was a shock initially when we heard about my brother. We weren't too naive to think that, you know, he mightn't try something like that or something like that. But it was so sudden. Do you know what I mean? There was no warning signs, and what I mean by that is that sometimes when somebody's using and when the family's involved, they understand that there is a chance that they might overdose or they might die. So it's kind of like they prepare almost for it. And now you don't want somebody to overdose and die. You want them to pull
I totally
through.
understand what you're saying. If me and Timmy died in our drug use, it wouldn't have been that much of a shock. The families are waiting for the call, kind of anyway. So I get 100% what you're saying. But when you got the call, it was the bolt out of the blue.
Yeah.
Was there any indication that he may have been using drugs before that or anything?
There was nothing really. Nothing at all. Like, he was just an 18-year-old teenager. Just like, he'd have a few drinks, he'd have a laugh with his friends. What they were doing, I don't know. But, you know, he moved to the city, he got a new group of friends. And just like any young person, like, you're 18, your brain's not fully developed, you don't know what you're doing. Like, you're not thinking of consequences, you're just living in the here and now. Like,
Totally. And at our age, we would have been taking ecstasy. But the thing is, these days, it's not just about ecstasy. Like, ecstasy is relatively safe. And I don't want people to go out using it. But ecstasy is relatively safe. But you've other drugs now, like head chop drugs, that you don't know what. There's no precedent for them. And we don't know what's in them. And that was the drug that he took. It wasn't like an ecstasy. It was a synthetic drug, was it?
It was, yeah. So they had thought they'd done their research on this. So they were thinking they were doing this 2CP drug, which would be a lesser drug. It would have been the lesser end of the psychedelic synthetics. But it ended up to be the N-bomb. So my brother he took enough doses to definitely kill 50 people by himself, unknowingly, do you know what I mean? And I think about it all the time because how many young people go out tonight now and will do whatever? Just
not knowing what they're taking.
exactly.
Really, you know.
There's no way they can tell or they'll know. And the majority of them will wake up tomorrow and be grand, like, you know, but there might be one or two that could be paralysed, could have a heart attack, something like that, or they might even, one worse, and die from it. So yeah, he had taken it, and then he was found up in Greenmount. He was in the middle of the floor, he was clutching to his chest, he'd suffered a cardiac arrest, he'd suffered a heart attack. And the paramedics, it took them 10 minutes to resuscitate him. So as he was being brought to CUH, his organs were failing, so they had to put him in a coma. And then that morning, as this was going on, I was sailing back from France. We were just pulling into Rosslare Harbour, and I was just getting ready for the day, you know, just having a cup of coffee, looking out at port, and my mum rang me. And now I genuinely, because I was home a week before that for New Year's, I'd seen my brother, and I hadn't seen him for 8 to 6 weeks. I was away at sea, so I remember he was like, "Oh, I'm working, will you meet me?" And I was heading off to sea the following day, so I was like, "Oh yeah, I will." And he was like, "Oh look, I'm gonna be a bit late, I'm working a bit later." And I was so close to being like, I'll meet you some other time. But I was like, "Look, I'm here, I'll just wait for you." And I remember I was standing outside the Glow Ferris wheel, and I looked over to my right, and he was just coming over that rickety bridge that's over there, you know. And I had to double take. I was like, "Who's that?" And then I was like, "Jeez, that's my brother." And I was like, "Oh my God," like, he'd matured so much in 6 weeks, like. And we walked through the city, he bought me a croissant, and we hugged, and he walked off because he was living in McCartan Street at the time, and that was it. That was the last time I saw him.
That was the last time you saw him.
Yeah.
You know, that memory will stick with you for the rest of your life. It was a nice memory though.
We weren't fighting.
At least you got a croissant, didn't you? But do you think moving to the city would have had any form of effect on what happened?
I'm sure it might have played a factor, but I don't know if he was going to do it, he was going to do it, you know, that kind of way, be it in the city, in the country, or wherever.
Yeah.
So he might have been more exposed to it, but I don't think so. Judging by what is going around now at the moment, there's no city, town, or crevice safe in Ireland from drugs. So it was just, could have been a case of wrong place, wrong time, wrong company. I don't know, but we'll never know really, you know, that kind of way.
You know, the damage you've done to your family, your mother, yourself, and the rest of your family. Do you know, if there's somebody watching here tonight and they're using drugs crazy, chaotically, what would you say to them, like, about the family? They're probably thinking that their families are giving them shit constantly because of their drug use and this and that. It's not even about that, really, is it?
It's not, because the destruction it causes, and it's to yourself that you're using, yeah, fair enough. But if you die, you're done. Your pain is over. But your family has to carry that pain every day for the rest of their lives. So it's really hard, of course, you know, it depends like how much you're using. And I also think things about like using drugs and stuff, it's more about our behaviours and our relationships with substances that's the problem, as opposed to the drug itself. You know, the drug's a chemical, it'll do what a chemical's supposed to do. But it's our relationships, like even myself, like when my brother died, I started drinking like mad. I tried to like forget. This was a huge story in the news, you know, and everywhere I went, I remember sitting down in where was I? The Rising Suns. You know, I was sitting there by myself, and there was two lads across from me. Now, obviously, didn't know who I was, like, but they were talking about Alex right there, you know, and I was like, oh, I just want everybody to forget it, like. But I started drinking then, and I was trying to drink to forget, but it wasn't working anymore. And it started to become problematic. My feelings, everything had started to come out in panic attacks, all these awful, like, I'd just be a mess, like. And I kind of went to a place where I was like, look, I have to do something. If I don't stop, I'll join my brother fairly soon. So I made that decision then afterwards, but it wasn't easy, you know what I mean? And even like in the last year, I've given up drinking since January, but again, with all the pressures going on, I started to find myself slipping into that problematic use again. You know, I was cancelling things because I was just hungover. I couldn't deal with it, and I was like, this needs to stop.
Yeah, like you were talking there about the alcohol use and the panic, very normal response to a traumatic event that you experienced. It's very normal. I think I remember when that happened. I remember when your brother died. It was like one of them. It was a big moment in Cork, you know.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't like, as I said, somebody like myself or Timmy that was in addiction that died. There's an air of inevitability about that. It's not so shocking. It happens all the time. But when it's a young person that takes a synthetic drug at a house party, that comes from maybe not a disadvantaged area, I suppose that's more shocking. And I remember when that happened, and there was a moral panic then around drug use and drugs. But I think you make good points in terms of it's not like a drug is a chemical and it'll do what a chemical is supposed to do, but it's our relationship with it. And I always say, I never in my life had a drug problem. My problem was not drugs. My problem was managing my emotions, coping with life, drug free. That was it. Because I worked in homeless services and I was surrounded by drugs. I was never once tempted. Handing out medication, Valium, giving people syringes, safe injecting, and all that. Never was I tempted. Seeing people smoking heroin and tinfoil, all these things that I done, was never tempted. Why? Because my relationship to the substance had changed, and it's an important point, you know what I mean? And I think that I suppose the old ways of giving drug education, of if you take this, you're going to die, if you take that, you're going to die. When a young person takes it and they don't die, then they're going to disregard everything else they've been told. So I think it's about making young people informed, you know what I mean, giving them the education around it, like this is the harms of this drug and this is the harms of this drug, and you're more likely to end up in addiction if you do this, or if you use this drug you might not die but your quality of life won't be great either.
Yeah.
And these are the kind of conversations we need to have with our young people.
Yeah, we need to be honest about it, because like I just remember it's the whole relationship thing now. Like, I'd be very like you, James, now. Like, I just remember being told that, oh, you'll die if you use drugs, you'll die. I went to college. All my friends were lads. Like, we were in a group, and for 3 years I didn't use anything. And I watched them use, and I was here spending €100 every night, getting absolutely pissed, dying for 2 days, and they were grand. I was like, why are they grand? What is going on? Like, what is so special about this? And that was actually in turn a classic example of lying and telling people, don't do it, you'll die. I saw that they didn't die. So then I was like, oh, sure, let me try something. Let me try a bit. And I did. And now, the fact of the matter is, it was a hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It really was. But I came to a point where I was like, nah, this isn't the life for me. And I just stopped. Like, that was it. I cut the relationship. But I still see some of the lads now, and they're gone beyond that point. There's, their lives have been just ruined by it. And some haven't. Some are able to stop. But again, it's that relationship. Like, it's my relationship with cigarettes. I smoking back when I was 15, when everybody said, don't do it, like, and I did it. And sure, 10 years later, I was still smoking fags. Horrible. But when I had a coffee, I'd smoke a fag. And that was the link that I made mentally in my brain. And that was the relationship I had. So when I gave up cigarettes, I don't drink coffee anymore. Because it was a link.
Yeah.
For me,
That makes sense. That makes sense with another drug there, cocaine. A lot of people, when they're drinking, they'll only get a bag of cocaine then. So it's quite similar. But towards the end, the addiction can become so strong, you don't need drink anymore.
Exactly.
And you're actually taking it going to work, you're taking it everywhere, you need it constantly then. And that's when the damage, it causes real mental health problems and issues with yourself. Like, for instance, towards the end of my own addiction, I was so paranoid I had to walk around with a hood, and I'd peep out the windows before I left the house. They are the consequences to addiction, to serious drugs. Where heroin is a lot different. No, I've never used heroin, but from what I've seen from my own family members using heroin, they were much more kind of relaxed and chilled out on the use of it, but their kind of dignity and their self-respect went a lot quicker. Towards the end, my own was gone as well. I couldn't even have a conversation with someone. I couldn't put a sentence together because it just destroyed me, because I was at it, so it was just erratic. My behaviour around it was chaotic. And it wasn't that I was using cocaine every day. It was that I was using it on a binge for maybe 5, 6, 7 days. No sleep. I'd be hallucinating, then be seeing all forms. I think it'd be people I remember one time I was living in a place out the country, and I walked in the door. I was on the bender for about 5 days at the time, and I went up the stairs. I thought there was someone in the attic. I was shouting up the stairs, "Come out! I know you're in there." I went in and I started searching the drawers inside, and these are just drawers, right? But it's crazy the actual long term damage. Like, myself and James have always spoke about what are the actual effects. We never know the effects of what it has caused to us, because if we didn't take it and we have taken it, you're not going to know the difference. It's just crazy.
There is an element of Russian roulette about the whole thing.
Unbelievably.
And like, your brother was a very unlucky boy at the same time. He was in a house with other people that took the same drug, and they didn't die.
No.
I've been in situations where I've taken the same drugs as somebody else and they have died. I've friends that have died and they've taken less drugs than what I would have taken. It's just, you are playing Russian roulette, and when you put that substance into your body, doesn't matter what it is, you don't know where the dealer is after getting it. Sometimes the dealer doesn't know where he's after getting it. He's after passing through so many hands, cut and chopped and mixed and everything, danced on, and by the time you ingest it, you actually don't know. And this is what we need to be telling young people. Take it if you want to take it, but just know this is where it's after coming from.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah.
So, do you know, like, when he died, you got caught up with anxiety and the drinking and all that. How did you manage to pull yourself out of it?
Do you know, I always question that myself. I suppose I've fought against the odds from a young age, so I've always had this resilience reservoir, I suppose. But I recognise that if I didn't do something with the grief that I had, because I wasn't in a place where I was able to start showing it, I'm very much like James McAvoy in his Split movie, 23 Personalities and 110 I am. Like, because like I often like meet people, like I've met people in my course and stuff like that, and I remember actually one of them, Susan Walsh, you know her?
I know Susan,
her?
yeah, she's a neighbour of ours. Yeah.
So Susan, when she first met, she's the same course as me.
She's
you know?
mad.
She is, and she was saying like, she's like, I thought you were right stuck up. I thought you were better than everybody else, is the way you carried yourself, and you walked in there looking like that, like. And I was like, Susan, and we're the best of friends now, like, you know. And I was like, not at all. It was actually, I suppose, a defense mechanism. Whereas on the inside now, I thought I was less than everybody in the room. Like, I had no self-confidence internally. But to compensate for that, I would look on the outside as if I was the most confident person in the world, you know? It was a facade. So I think I got to the point where I literally, there was nothing else to lose for me. I had lost my whole future. I hate everything. All my dreams, hopes died with Alex at the time. And I remember saying, because I did his eulogy for his funeral, and then people after were like, geez, you're great at speaking. You should speak properly. You know, you should tell his story. And I was like, nah, it's stupid. Like, who's going to want to know? And I fought myself for a solid week on this. I was like, yeah. And then, you know, that old critic come in, yeah, who you? Like, you don't know nothing about nothing. You can't do this. And I said it to my friend. And I goes, look, what you think if I did this? What you think about that? Like, and she said to me, look, the worst that can happen to you is nothing. Like, that's the worst possible case. You throw it out there, nothing happens. Because, and then she was right, you know, I had lost everything. The only way from here was either death or up. So it was a choice that I made, you know. And yeah, I went head first into it. Hadn't a clue. I thought I knew drugs. I knew nothing. Do you know what I mean? And it's ironic because it took my brother to die for me to understand the bigger picture.
I had to find your purpose.
Yeah.
Even.
Exactly.
You know, like a lot of people, it sounds to me, it's your purpose, but something bad had to happen for you to actually find your purpose in life.
Yeah.
You know, and that's one of something that everybody longs to find is that one thing that is purposeful in their life that they can actually enjoy doing and do it every day. You know.
But it's about taking the negative, like what myself and Timmy talk about as well. You know, we've had bad experiences and we've done bad things and a lot of negativity and a life full of negativity, negative emotions and all these things. But then when we come into recovery, it's like, how can we take all that negativity and do something with it? And we, you know, I had the same inner dialogue as you when I was going on the Tommy Tiernan show. And it took me a year to actually say yes, because I said no the first time.
You look so cat, like.
It's a facade. It's a facade, like you said. But it's like, who do you think you are? And even when we started this podcast, we're like, will people be like,
you'll always have
the two
that.
boys, who the fuck do they think they are? They're only, you know, they were doing this, that, and they think they're this and that. No, all that is going on. But you know what, you just have to take a leap of faith at the same time. You know, like if your motivation is right, like you got into the public speaking and raising awareness around drug use, your motivation was right, and that comes across then. The people that say, you know what, fucking fair play to her. She could have went so many ways with this, but she's going to do it. She's going to use it for the right reasons, and people respect that. I totally respect what you're doing. I think there's great credit due to you.
Yeah. I think it's this grief. This is what carries it, you know. There's so much of it, and I've only started to skim the surface 4 years on, and it gives me that motivation. And like, I still have that voice. Like today, I was like, what are you doing? Like, coming on this podcast. What do you think you are? Like, you know, you'll always have that. And you'll always have people. Like, I remember 2 years in, I think a year and a half in, one of my friends said to me, we were in the pub, we were just, you know, things got a bit heated. And they turned around to me and they said, you're only getting famous off the back of your brother's death. And there came that voice. And it was like, you know, that's what people are thinking of you. And you know, that's what people think. And I lost my purpose for a second. That wasn't why I started this whole thing, you know. I was like, look, if I can just help one person, that's all I want. And then I started, you know, going down the spiral of like, oh God, is that what people are saying about me? They probably are. You know, maybe you should stop. Like, you're no expert. You're no this, that, the other. But sometimes, you know, you can't buy experience. Like, no matter what, you can't read about it. You can read about it. You can't study it. Personal experience is the strongest thing, you know. And yeah, it's a lot of my grief goes into this. It's a really weird way of keeping him alive, you know.
And you have a charity in his name.
I'm not a charity. Everyone always thinks I'm a charity. Jeez, no, I'm a business.
Oh, the CEO. Well, no, fair play. It's a big distinction.
You have to live as well, I suppose.
You do. That's you have to. Because like I still have bills to pay. They didn't go away.
I know.
You just said it there. Your experience and your family's experience, that needs to be spoken about. People need to hear that.
Yeah.
People need to be educated, particularly young people in secondary. When they're in secondary, they're finding their group, their peers that they're going to spend time with. May it be the educated kids who are highly educated, you know, are the kids who are in between, are the kids at the bottom who have maybe a lot of problems going on at home, or may have their own mental health issues, or insecurities, or whatever it may be. You know, these kids really need education around drugs. You know, and they need to be told the story like Alex's. You know, a guy that probably wasn't using drugs, 6 months? You know, it can happen to anybody.
That's it.
It can happen to absolutely anybody. Everybody needs to hear that.
Yeah.
You know, there needs to be more education inside in schools. And it's vital, not just schools, everywhere. Because like the problem with cocaine inside in this country at the moment is massive. It's massive, like. And a lot of people can only come out of their shells when they're on it. That was the only time I came out of my shell. I couldn't even. James would tell you, like, when I used cocaine and drink and stuff, it was like I was a different person. I had that different little bit of confidence, and I was able to speak and talk. Behind all that, I was just a shell, like, you know, I was just existing. I had my own problems with mental health. But this is very, very important. For me, the drugs did save my life up to a certain point, because they kept me out of my head in terms of the thinking that would have went on if I wasn't using. You know, all the shit that went on in early childhood, all this, the mental health issues. You're no good. You said it there a while ago. You're not worthy, and all these are all things that were in my mind all the time. But drugs came along, and I was able to talk to a girl at 15 because I was drinking and drugging it, you know, early, and I couldn't. If you started talking to me when I was young, I couldn't look at you in the face. I was so shy, you know. I never knew how to be able to speak to people. I had no self-esteem. I had no confidence. I had nothing, you know. So it's very important that people go into schools and talk. Like myself and James, we've spoke about it. When the opportunity comes, we will make an effort in trying to get into schools and show people what is there. If debt is there as well, but we need to show them what is there if they go into that life.
I think that's, you know, like Alex now was experimenting at the age of 18. So are we, and so do most 18-year-olds.
Yeah.
Let's be honest about it. If it's not alcohol, it's something else. But people do experiment at that age. It's a normal enough thing to do. But when you start using substances and you have underlying issues like poor mental health, low self-esteem, traumatic childhoods, the substance, then it doesn't become about having fun at a party. It becomes a way of coping with everything else, and that substance will take over your life. So if you're not, like, let's say if you were kind of mature as a person, you're, going through your college, you tried the drugs, you're, able to say, you know what, I've tried it, I don't want it, I'm going to move away. But if you were after coming through, I don't know, whatever sort of adversity people come through, not saying you haven't been through adversity, I'm sure you have. I know you have because you've told us. But some people that come through abuse or neglect, or if they've, like Timmy was talking about, he low confidence, low self-esteem, all of a sudden the drug is the compensation for all that, and the drug then becomes more important than the study, and you're more likely to walk away from the study than the drug. But thankfully you were able to do it the other way around, so that's important as well. I just want you to tell us a little bit about Alex's adventure, your company.
Yeah, I suppose I started off with just workshops. I just started off telling the story. And I wanted to educate young people about the drugs that they're going to come across commonly in their circle. So like things like ecstasy, MDMA, they're always going to come across that. Cannabis, that's always number one for them. Alcohol and benzodiazepines, big, huge prescription drugs that's creeping up very, very fast on young people especially. So I tell them the story. I do the demonstration with them. Demonstration is really fun. So I bring out my drugs. Well, they're just powders, flour and stuff.
Yeah.
And I line them out and I ask them from the audience, to come up and cut out their dose of what they would take and think it would be safe to take, Gas crack, we all have a laugh. And all of them always die because it's quite a lot what they take. They always think it's that general line that we all see on TV or in TV shows or whatever.
Yeah, Pulp Fiction job, just...
Yeah, just great. So then I, showed them, you might have had an overdose. You probably wouldn't. We'd be calling an ambulance, anything can happen. And then I switch it over because I give them actually synthetic drugs. And all of them dead within the space of an hour. And the whole point of that is to show you that you never know what you'll have. Because, I play the role of drug dealer, so I don't care. Like, I'll just sell you whatever. I'm not going to be taking that stuff. But they're always very shocked that this can happen. Like, what? Like, the drug dealer was dishonest,
Yeah.
But that's the reality of it.
Yeah. You bring up a vital point there. It's about when you have punitive only response to drugs like heroin, cocaine, cannabis, criminalize the drug, make the drug illegal, and that's the only thing to do with that drug. Then you have synthetic drugs that come in their place that are legal for a period of time, that are much more dangerous, like the N-bomb, like mephedrone, like fentanyl. All these are way more dangerous than the actual drugs that were banned in the first place. And in America they had a big issue with opioid prescriptions.
Yeah.
Doctors prescribing oxycodone, Percocet and all these things, and they actually banned doctors from prescribing them drugs. And now they have a huge fentanyl and heroin problem because the people that are on these opiate tablets, they're still addicted. You cut the prescription, where they're going to go? To the street. And if you have a big bust of cocaine in Cork, where do people go? They go for the mephedrone, the blow. You have a big bust in heroin, what happens? Fentanyl is brought in because it's stronger and you only need. So it's a dangerous balance. Like the police or the guards do have a place in the drug, I suppose, epidemic or the drug scene.
Yeah.
But when it's a guards only response, we're missing a lot of stuff,
We do. There's a lot of things that we miss, education and not penalizing people. Like just general perceptions of people who are drug users, it's just sad, because people don't see themselves as, like, for instance, even with steroids. Steroids is a big thing that's starting to happen. Men who inject don't see themselves as injecting drug users. They just see themselves as putting steroids into their body. But they are injecting drug users, It's that perception that it's never going to be me. And I always think of people how, let's say I was a habitual drug user, I was using all the time. I wake up and I'm skagging hard. I go out, I ask for money, and people had often said to me before, what are you giving the money for? Like, he's only going to start using. And I'm like, yeah, well, I'm helping him today. I'm keeping him alive today. That's the point. I don't care what he spends it on. Sure, what's €5 to me, Yeah, but he's going to spend it on heroin. Good. He's alive.
people think that it's very easy for an addict to sit in a street.
Yeah.
That's not an easy thing at all. You know, we've often came across people sitting in the streets, and we know a lot of them. It's not an easy thing to sit there and be ashamed of yourself at all. That's really bad. But if for somebody to give them a few quid, it takes them off the street, and they're gone, and they're not feeling that bit of shame that they're there for a few hours. Like, you're actually helping them. People think, oh, we all know what they're going to do with it, you know, because I would have done the same thing. You know.
Well,
But
how else can you actually survive a harsh reality like living in homelessness without a drug? Like, how else can you survive it? You need,
impossible.
and myself and Timmy bumped into somebody there recently on Paul Street, you know, where to be begging there. We stopped talking to him, we gave him €20. We knew well why he was going. He started crying when we gave it to him. He couldn't really get over the generosity, because normally they get 20, 30 cents, you know, you might get a, we gave him €20, he started crying, he started getting a tuck in his heart and all. And he got up and he walked away. We know for a fact he's gone scoring, and you know, you'll be thinking, was that the right thing to do? But you know what? If it gets him off the street for a few hours, do you know what I mean? If it makes his day a little bit easier, isn't that okay to give him the €2 or €3 or the couple of euros if you have it? You know.
Exactly, because like, you're not gonna, you know, save his life there and then.
No.
You're not gonna be like, oh, let me take you in there and save your life in the space of 24 hours and turn it around. You don't have the capacity to do that.
But
You know?
you're showing them that people are actually good, though.
Yeah.
What you're doing is giving that fella a little bit of hope, because he's seeing that people aren't against him. There actually are people there that want to help him, and he actually started talking then afterwards that he was going to make an effort to try to get into treatment. You know, because behind that young lad there's a family. There could possibly be young kids or a partner. You know, and they all have their own separate story. You know, and separate heartache that's going on for them, because they're looking at a loved one destroyed. You know, it's a really, really sad thing. And one of the most important things for me to get across to people that do listen to our show is to show people that judging people that are really destroyed from drugs and alcohol, it doesn't help anything. You know, try to have a small bit of compassion from, like, because nobody actually does wake up in the morning and decide to go that they want to be homeless, or they want to be strung out, or they want to be inside in prison because they had to go away and rob a shop because they needed money for heroin or crack or whatever. You know, it's a problem that we have to deal with in society, and we have to look at ways that to deal with it.
Other than courts,
Yeah.
like, can you imagine the guards come into that house when your brother and his friends are there? They were all arrested. Like, would you see them young people as criminals? They're not criminals. They're only young people. They're only 18. They're having a party. They're having fun. They're not criminals. But the letter of the law says they need to go to court and be convicted. That's a madness. What do you think about decriminalization and that whole policy of criminalizing that we have at the moment?
I think it doesn't work. It doesn't work because there's so many factors and such variance. Like, it's not just black and white. You know, if I'm using, and if I get caught with a tiny bit that I'm using to keep myself alive, I suddenly get put into jail, and okay, I'm in jail. They put me on a program, and then they throw me back out. My problems aren't fixed. I still have my issues, and now I'm back in society. And I always think that people forget that the drug community is just that, a community. The users know each other. Everybody knows each other. So if I'm in between this way where society still sees me as a drug user, even though I've been to jail, even though I'm clean, society still doesn't want to accept me, you know, and I'm trying. I can't. So what am I going to do? I'll go back to what I know, because the drug community is going to have me again. Not a bother.
Any response, and my own research and my masters kind of showed this, any response to drug use that doesn't involve addressing economic deprivation, homelessness, are futile. Like, you will never get somebody into recovery if that person is homeless leaving the treatment centre or the prison. Like, homelessness is a huge factor in chronic addiction, and mental health is a huge factor in addiction too. And you don't have to be homeless or from a deprived area. You can be a student. I know there's huge pressures on students, and you know, to stay up late and study. And then, like, I remember when I was in college as a mature student, you know, I could never understand how the young people got through college with the distractions that are there. from a male perspective, the women, drinking, the partying, the drugs, all these things. I think if I was 18, 19, 20 in UCC, I would not have got through the course.
It's some life though. When you're looking at the young people, like it's some life they have. There was times like I was 30. I was in the CIT for the last 4 years. I'm nearly 40 next year, and I was looking at all these 20, 21-year-olds and looking from the outside, they were having so much fun. Like, their grades weren't great. They were having a ball, and I was saying, fucking hell, I'd love to be their age again, but be a little bit mature. Because when I was 18 or 20, I would have been in 2 treatment centres already at the age of 18.
I was in Cork prison at 18, and we when we were 18, we looked at the students in UCC and thought they were sausages.
Weird. It wasn't something that was normal to us, you see.
Posh boys or something.
It just wasn't something that we people never done it in our area. No, there was people, but we never see it. I would have never seen it, and I'm sure James would have never seen it. But the only thing I want now is for my 2 kids. Just keep on educating them, because for me, when I got educated to what I have now, it gave me a little bit, it gave me self-esteem, it gave me confidence. It's things that I never had before. I felt like I could have a conversation with people and understand their vocabulary. I never had any of that, I don't feel like a child in a conversation anymore. So it's fantastic. It's that little bit of power it's given me, and we emphasize as well the importance of trying to get people into education, people that are from not just Knocknaheeny or Churchfield or any area in the north, every area. Education is free. It should be free, and it's very important. And I think it'll give other people what has given me as well, that extra little bit of confidence to get in the door and get these good jobs where we can be able to have a good life and provide for our families, and instead of being just sectioned out of society because we have an addiction or because we're not educated enough. I've done a degree in construction management, and I done my dissertation on the mental health in the construction industry, and it came out that the men in the construction industry, out of all men, right, say out of 4 suicides, 3 of those would be men from the construction industry, right? And the majority of those 3 would be from the lower kind of tier, your general operative, your labourer, your plasterers, electricians. But the higher up, then it gets lower, the percentage gets lower. And something needs to be done to help those people as well. There's no mental health education inside there.
No.
They're just working there 5 days a week. They get their money on the Friday because what's going through their head from Monday up till the Friday is the weekend.
Yeah.
And you know why I'm saying that? It's because I was there. That was my life.
And cocaine use is a huge factor in construction. Actually, there's a report, I think it was released today or yesterday. Cocaine use has actually surpassed opiate use to become the 2nd most used substance in Ireland behind alcohol.
But everyone's using, every single person in any profession. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you're using it as like a judge, barrister, solicitors, all of them, they're using it to stay awake and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You've the GAA, the lads that play sport use it because, if I have a match, I can't be drinking pints because that's just going to deteriorate me. But sure, a few lines of coke is grand.
Yeah.
Like, it'll give me that buzz, it'll give me that confidence, it'll give me a great night. Off I go playing my game the next day.
Yeah.
And people don't realise that. Like
It's become normalised, hasn't it?
It just is, yeah. We just get back coke. Just get back coke.
It doesn't have the stigma. It doesn't have the stigma.
The shame and the stigma, no, it's gone. Like, I remember my time, there was still that shame because, people run upstairs and they'd go upstairs and they'd hide, and everybody downstairs in the party would know what's going on, but nobody's doing it so blasé. But now, like, you'll walk in College Road, you'll walk into a party. No, I don't be making habits of walking to parties, way too old for that. But you would walk in and they'll be asking you, do you want a line or do you want a drink?
Yeah.
Just like that.
Yeah. But look, before we finish up, Nicole, I just want to ask you one thing. There's a lot of families in our area and beyond that have been affected by drug use in the family or the death of a loved one, have you any words of comfort or advice that you could give somebody having been through it yourself? I know no one putting you on the spot.
You're great. I don't want to say that it gets better because it really depends. It never gets better because better is having him here. Do you know what I mean? You get stronger as a person, but that again is down to your own decision. You know, you can sit there and play the victim for as long as you want, and you're welcome. You're allowed to be a victim. I allowed myself to be a victim. I had every right to be, but I didn't allow myself to stay the victim. You know, it's trying to find something that you can keep waking up for, finding that purpose, you know, and it can be really small for some people. It doesn't have to be out there giving talks, do you know what I mean? It could be just out there volunteering or doing my little tiny bit to help the situation, or even talking to your friends, do you know what I mean? The amount of friends that I've like not convinced or turned, because I'm not a cult, but just open their mind to looking beyond, why are you giving him €5, he's only going to spend it on drugs, to now they're giving them the €5, do you know what I mean? It's about trying to open people up and also taking care of yourself. Like, I never went to therapy until my brother died. I had this preconceived notion that like, oh, this isn't gonna work. But it's the best thing that I ever did. It saved my life because I am able to understand why I react, how I am, why I am the way I am. And people who've lost somebody due to drugs, or due to some sort of a traumatic event like that, you know, don't be afraid to seek the help, you know, because there is a lot of loss, a lot of pain that you need to start working through to move on. You know, you'll never forget, but you can try and help yourself too, you know, and try not to stay the victim always.
That's good advice.
Yeah, and like for people watching, they might feel like that there's not a way out of the depression and the suffering and the grief, but there is a way of managing that and maybe living a fulfilled, if not happy life. You can get some quality of life back, just not allowing yourself to be brought into the depths of it for the rest of your life, you know. As
Yeah.
you said, you'll never have him back, and it's just about doing what you can today. And look, it's not an easy thing to do. What if people want to contact you? How can...
Oh yeah, they can go on the website, which is alexadventure.ie, Facebook, Instagram, the whole lot. I'm there, and just reach out to me because I'm always up for a cup of tea, a cup of chat, like with anybody. Do you know what I mean? Because a lot of people have given me their time, so I always give my time back.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thanks for coming to Churchfield.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
And we'd love to have you on again sometime.
Definitely.
Oh, not a bother.
We could have went longer, but our producer there's giving me the eyes, so thanks a million. And look, thanks to everybody that's watching. We'll see you all next week. Any final words, Tim?
No, and just for anybody that is watching, and they're in the grip of addiction and their families are giving them shit basically over what's going on, they have to try to understand that their families are really worried, you know, because this lady here, she lost her brother to it, and she knows exactly what happens to family members, you know, the pain and suffering that they go through, you know, when a loved one is gone. So this might help you, you know, just to see what has happened here, you know, and just make that first step and try to get a bit of help and look for it. You know, it is there, and I always say it, the help is there. You just have to ask for it and think that you're no different to anybody else. You can get this just as easy as James got it, myself got it, and everybody else out there. So if that's what it really,
Yeah.
you know.
See you next week.
Thank you.
Good luck.